I knew my HOA president, Karen, didn't like me, but I never expected her to call the cops over my front yard. Yeah, the same yard I had spent weeks fixing after the storm. So imagine this. I'm planting new flowers, minding my own business, when two officers walk up and ask if I'm destroying HOA property. That's when I realized Karen wasn't just nosy. She was desperate. Desperate enough to lie. Desperate enough to file a false report. Desperate enough to try and get me kicked out of the neighborhood. But what she didn't know was that I had something she would never see coming. A secret she'd been hiding, one the HOA never wanted anyone to find out, and I was about to expose it in front of everyone. So buckle up, because when Karen called the cops on me, she accidentally triggered a chain of events that completely destroyed her power, and turned the entire neighborhood against her. I always thought I knew what kind of life I wanted. Quiet. Simple. Predictable. I didn't need much, just a place where I could breathe after years of non-stop work. So when I found the small house on the corner lot, with its old oak tree and wide front yard, I felt like I had finally found that peace. But then I met Karen. She approached me on my second day. Not with a welcome basket. Not with a smile. No, she arrived with a clipboard tucked under her arm like a weapon and a tone that told me she had already decided I was a problem. Hello. I'm Karen, HOA president. No handshake. No warmth. She didn't ask how the move went. She didn't ask if I needed anything. She just began listing rules. Lawn height. Paint colors. Trash bin hours. Seasonal decor limits. Things I didn't even know could be controlled. I nodded politely at everything, thinking she was just thorough. Overly involved. Maybe too proud of her position. But not dangerous. I was wrong. The first few weeks were peaceful. I fixed up the house. Painted the shutters. Replaced the mailbox. Cleaned up the yard. I even trimmed back the old tree. I didn't violate any rules. I made sure of it. Still, the letters started coming. Your trash bin was visible from the street at 6:14 p.m. Fine. $25. Your lawn appears uneven by HOA standards. Fine. $40. Your garden decorations are unconventional. Another fine. The crazy part? Most of it wasn't even true. My trash bin was in its place. My lawn was freshly mowed. The decorations were literally 3 terracotta pots. I started realizing this wasn't about rules. This was about control. Her control. I tried ignoring her, hoping she'd eventually get bored. Some neighbors told me that's the best approach. Just lay low, one said. She targets new people, but it slows down after a while. Except, it didn't slow down for me. If anything, it escalated. Then came the storm, the worst one we'd had in years. My yard got wrecked. Tree branches everywhere. Soil washed out. Flower beds destroyed. I spent an entire weekend cleaning up and replanting. That's when everything truly started. On a quiet Tuesday morning, I stepped out to continue fixing the yard. I remember kneeling down to dig a hole for a new azalea bush when I noticed Karen across the street, watching me from her porch like I was committing a crime. Her arms were crossed. Her foot was tapping. She was on the phone. I ignored it. Put my headphones in. Kept working. 10 minutes later, 2 police officers entered the street. At first, I didn't think they were for me. Why would they be? I was literally planting flowers. But then they slowed down. Parked. Walked toward me. Sir, can we speak with you for a moment? One asked. I stood up, confused. Sure. Is something wrong? We received a report that you were damaging HOA property, the officer said. My mind blanked. Damaging? What property? The yard, he said. The HOA president claims you're removing approved landscape features and altering community property lines. I actually laughed for a second, not because it was funny, but because it was so absurd my brain didn't know how else to react. "This is my yard," I said. "On my property. I'm fixing storm damage. You can see the debris bags right there." The officers looked at each other, then at the yard. It was obvious nothing illegal was happening. Karen, of course, chose this moment to march over. She pointed at my flower beds like she was presenting evidence in a murder trial. "He's digging past the approved setback line," she snapped. "He's destroying HOA-maintained turf." I took a deep breath. "Karen, this is my yard. I literally have the survey papers inside." She ignored me entirely. The officers calmly asked her to step back while they clarified things. Her face tightened. She hated that. After a short discussion, the officers apologized to me and left. They didn't cite me. They didn't warn me. They didn't do anything because there was nothing to do. But Karen, she stood on the sidewalk, red-faced, furious, humiliated. She glared at me like I had just ruined her life. "You're violating the rules," she hissed. "You won't get away with this." Then she marched off, practically shaking with anger. And it was in that moment, watching her retreat, watching her ego crumble from the smallest pushback, that I realized something. She wasn't just controlling. She wasn't just power-hungry. She was hiding something. Because people who follow the rules don't react like that. People who enforce the rules fairly don't panic over nothing. People who have nothing to protect don't call the cops on someone planting flowers. No, Karen was scared. Scared enough to lie. Scared enough to weaponize authority. Scared enough to humiliate herself publicly. Which made me wonder, what exactly was she afraid I'd find? That question became the start of everything. And within days, I stumbled onto something that explained it all. Something she had spent years hiding, from the neighborhood, from the HOA board, and from the people she bullied into silence. But before I exposed it, I needed proof. Real, solid proof. The kind that even Karen couldn't gaslight her way out of. And getting that proof, that's where the Rayall story begins. For a day or two after the police incident, things were strangely quiet. Too quiet. Karen didn't show up at my door. No new fines. No threats. No passive-aggressive notes taped to my mailbox. If you've ever dealt with someone who craves control, you know this kind of silence is never a good sign. It's not peace, it's the calm before the storm. And I was right. On Thursday morning, I woke up to an envelope taped to my door. Not placed gently. Taped. Like someone wanted to make sure I couldn't pretend I didn't see it. I pulled it off and opened it. Notice of violation. Immediate corrective action required. Failure to comply may result in escalating fines. The reason? Unauthorized alteration of HOA property. The same lie she had already fed to the police. I actually felt my heart drop. Not because of the fine, but because I realized Karen had no intention of backing off. If anything, she was doubling down. I put the letter aside and started getting ready for work. But before I even finished my coffee, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered anyway. "Is this the new guy on Maple Ridge?" A low voice said. "Yes." "Who's calling?" There was a long pause. "Don't hang up. I'm calling to warn you." My stomach tightened. "Warn me about what?" "About Karen," the voice whispered. "About how she really runs the HOA." I stepped away from the window, suddenly paranoid she could see me. "Who is this?" I asked again. "You don't need my name. You just need to know you're not the first person she's targeted." My chest tightened. I knew she was unreasonable. But a pattern. That changed everything. The caller continued, speaking like someone afraid of being overheard. "She goes after anyone she thinks won't fight back. New homeowners. Elderly neighbors. Single parents. Anyone who looks like they don't have the time or energy to push through the paperwork." I leaned against the wall, listening. She writes fake violations. She manipulates the board. She exaggerates complaints. And if someone stands up to her? The voice let out a shaky breath. She finds a way to bury them in fines until they either move out or break. I didn't even know what to say. Why are you telling me this? I finally asked. Another pause. This one longer. Sadder. Because I didn't speak up when she came after my family. And I'm still paying the price for it. My heart sank. The voice cracked slightly, like whoever was calling was holding back tears. She won't stop. Not unless you expose her. But be careful. Karen isn't stupid. She only makes moves she can deny later. The call ended abruptly. I stood there in my kitchen, staring at my phone, trying to process everything. Someone was scared enough to call me anonymously. That alone told me I wasn't overreacting. Karen wasn't just strict. She was dangerous. And if Karen had a history of lying, bullying, and manipulating, then whatever she was afraid I'd find, it wasn't small. I decided to dig. Not like a spy or detective. Just paying attention. Looking closer. Asking casual questions. Observing. And the first person I talked to was an elderly neighbor named Mr. Brooks, a quiet man who walked his dog past my house every morning. One day I asked him, casually, "Has Karen always been intense?" He chuckled bitterly. "Son, she's been intense since the day she won the presidency. And she never let go of that chair again." "What do you mean?" He sighed. "Every year, there's supposed to be an election. But Karen postpones them. Claims there wasn't enough turnout. Or that the paperwork wasn't filed correctly. Or that the old rules say the president stays until there's a full quorum." "And is any of that true?" He gave me a look. You know that look, the kind that says of course not, but what can we do? "She runs everything," he said softly. "The budget. The meetings. The fines. She even handles community complaints personally. She doesn't like anyone else seeing the files." That caught my attention. "The files?" "Yes," he said. "The HOA complaint records. Violation notices. Budgets. Permissions. You know, the things the board should manage. But she keeps them. In her house," he said. "Locked in a cabinet. She claims the HOA office storage is being remodeled." He rolled his eyes. "It's been remodeling for 6 years." I felt something click. Like a puzzle piece sliding into place. Karen wasn't just power-hungry. She was hiding information. On purpose. But what? Financial records. Misused funds. Fake complaints. Something illegal? I didn't know yet. But I knew one thing. If I wanted to expose her, I needed to see those files. Later that evening, something strange happened. I was sitting on my porch when a woman I'd never seen before walked by quickly, looking around nervously. She stopped at my gate and said quietly, "You don't know me. My name's Lila. And you need to stop what you're doing." I blinked. "What I'm doing?" She swallowed hard. "Karen knows you're digging. She knows you're asking questions. She's planning something." My heart dropped. "What is she planning?" Lila hesitated, then stepped closer. "She's trying to get you flagged as a non-compliant homeowner. Once she files that, the HOA can legally increase your fines and even put a lien on your house." "A lien? For what?" "For whatever she decides," Lila whispered. "She just needs the board to sign off, and she controls the board." I felt a cold wave go through me. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. She looked over her shoulder, voice barely above a whisper. "Because she did it to my sister. And it ruined her life." I felt anger rising in my chest, not loud anger, but the cold kind that settles deep and steady. Karen had done this before. Probably many times. She thought she could do it to me. She thought she could scare me off. She thought I would just back down. But something Lila said shifted everything. She only has power because no one fights back. Well, I was done being silent. That's when I made the decision that changed everything. I was going to expose Karen. Publicly. Legally. And with undeniable proof. I didn't know yet how, or what exactly she was hiding. But I was about to find out. And once I did, her entire empire would collapse. The night after meeting Lila, I barely slept. Not because I was scared, but because my mind wouldn't stop spinning. Every warning. Every whispered conversation. Every strange detail about how Karen ran the HOA. It all pointed to one thing. Karen wasn't just abusing her power, she was hiding something big. And the only way to expose it was to get inside the one place everyone kept mentioning, her private HOA files. According to Mr. Brooks, everything, complaints, budgets, fines, approvals, permits, all lived inside her house, locked away in a cabinet. No HOA president should keep documents at home. Not unless they had something to lose. The question was, how could I see those files without breaking the law? I wasn't going to do anything stupid. No sneaking in. No trespassing. No movie-style tactics. I needed something smarter. Something legal. Something she couldn't challenge. So the next morning, I did something simple, something she would never expect. I filed an official HOA records request. Most states require HOAs to provide homeowners access to financial records, votes, budgets, and governing decisions. I searched the rules, printed the form, filled it out, and hand-delivered it. Karen wasn't home, but her mailbox was open, so I slipped it inside. A legal request. In writing. With a deadline. She couldn't ignore it. Not without breaking the law herself. And I knew that alone would make her panic. That evening, something strange happened. I got home from work and found a yellow sticky note on my front door. It wasn't aggressive, and it wasn't from Karen. The handwriting was neat and shaky. Be careful. She watches everyone who files those requests. No name. No explanation. Just a warning. I looked around the street, but no one was outside. No one claimed it. The paranoia was real now, not the imagining things kind, but the you're touching something she doesn't want touched kind. The next morning, I woke up early, stepped outside, and saw Karen standing across the street. Waiting. Staring. Smiling just a little too much. My stomach twisted. She approached slowly, like she wanted to look calm, but everything about her felt tense. I got your little request, she said. Her voice was sugary. Fake. The kind of tone someone uses right before they snap. Yes, I replied. I'd like to review the HOA files. She tilted her head. And why would you need to see those? It's my right as a homeowner, I said gently. Nothing personal. Her smile twitched. Everything about you is personal at this point. The passive threat was clear. But I didn't back down. I just repeated, I'll be expecting them before the deadline. She held my gaze for a long moment, eyes narrowed, cheeks tight. Then she said something that confirmed every suspicion I had. That cabinet is locked for a reason. And she walked away. That one sentence changed everything. She could have said, they're in my office, or, I'll bring them at the next meeting. But she didn't. She admitted they were locked. Hidden. I needed help. So I went to the one person who seemed brave enough to warn me directly, Lila. She didn't open the door at first. I had to knock twice. When she finally peeked out, she looked nervous. What are you doing here? She whispered. I need your help, I said. She hesitated. I could see the fight inside her, fear versus guilt. Come in, she finally said. Her house was small but cozy, with photos all over the shelves. Family, kids, laughter, life. Something about it grounded me. She sat across from me and folded her hands. What did she do now? She asked. I filed a records request, I said. Her eyes widened. Oh no. Oh yes, I replied. She's hiding something. Everyone knows it. I just don't know what. Lila sighed deeply. I shouldn't be involved, she said. But, my sister lost her home because of Karen. I can't keep pretending everything is fine. She leaned in closer. Do you know why she keeps the files at home? Why she never lets anyone else touch them? I shook my head. Because there's a second cabinet, she whispered. A hidden one. My breath caught. What's inside it? I asked. Lila looked down, voice trembling. Files she doesn't want anyone to see. Complaints she never processed. Violations she made up. Fines she collected and never reported. And something else, she swallowed. Photos. Photos. I repeated. She nodded. She takes pictures of people. Their houses. Their yards. Their cars. Sometimes their windows. She acts like it's for the HOA, but she keeps them for herself. Nobody knows why. A cold chill moved through my body. Karen wasn't just strict. She was watching people, tracking them, documenting them. That's not all, Lila whispered. She keeps notes about everyone. Personal things. Things she shouldn't know. I sat back, stunned. So she's building files on homeowners? Yes, Lila said. And she uses those files to control people. I clenched my jaw. This wasn't just an abuse of power. This was a system, a scheme, built on fear. Can I see it? I asked quietly. Do you know how to access it? Lila shook her head. No one's ever seen the inside of that cabinet except her. My hope dimmed for a moment, but then she added, but I know someone who might help. Who? She exhaled. Her ex-husband. I blinked. Karen was married? Years ago, Lila said. Before she became HOA president. Before she changed. Why did they divorce? Lila looked at me like the answer was obvious. Because she tried to run their marriage like an HOA. I almost laughed in disbelief. She kept notes on him. Logged his schedule. Filed complaints about chores. Made charts. Set rules. The man snapped. What's his name? I asked. Mark, she said. He moved 2 neighborhoods over. But he still knows how she thinks. He knows her patterns. And he might know how that cabinet works. My heartbeat picked up. This was my opening. Maybe the only one I'd get. Can you introduce me to him? I asked. Lila hesitated again, long enough for me to worry she'd say no. Then she stood up slowly. I'll arrange it. But what? She met my eyes. If you keep going down this path, you won't just expose her. You'll destroy her. I nodded. That's exactly what she deserves. Lila's expression shifted, fear mixed with relief. Okay, she whispered. Then let's finish this. Lila didn't call right away. I spent the next 2 days checking my phone constantly, half expecting Karen to show up on my porch with another bogus violation, half expecting Lila to back out and disappear. But on the 3rd evening, just after sunset, my phone buzzed. Lila, he agreed to meet. Tonight. 8 p.m. Don't be late. My heart thumped a little harder. This was it, the first real step toward understanding what Karen was hiding. Mark lived in a modest townhouse 2 neighborhoods over. When I pulled up, the porch light was already on. Lila was standing outside, arms folded like she wasn't sure she wanted to go inside. When she saw me, she gave a quick nod. He's nervous, she whispered. Just be honest. Don't push him. I followed her to the door. Before she even knocked, it opened. Mark was a tall man with tired eyes. Not angry. Not bitter. Just exhausted, like someone who had once fought a long war and finally laid down his weapons. He gave me a small, polite nod. "You're the new one she called the cops on," he said. "Yes," I replied quietly. "That's me." He let us in. The living room looked like a man who didn't want to be bothered by anything unnecessary. Clean, simple, no clutter. But the one thing that stood out was the locked metal box on a shelf. It didn't take a genius to guess what it was. A safe. He caught me looking. "That's where I keep the divorce papers," he said dryly. "Just in case." We sat down, and Mark wasted no time. "So, you want to know about the cabinet?" I nodded. "Yes. I filed a records request. She's stalling. And I know she's hiding something." Mark let out a quiet, humorless laugh. "She's hiding a lot more than something." Lila leaned forward. "Tell him, Mark. He needs to know." He rubbed his face with both hands, looking conflicted. "Look. I didn't leave Karen because I stopped loving her. I left because she stopped seeing me as a person." His eyes softened, regret mixed with something heavier. In her mind, everything became a rule. Everything needed approval. Everything needed to be documented. She kept files on neighbors, friends, even me. "You too?" I asked. He nodded slowly. "She wrote down every argument we ever had. Every schedule detail. Every time I came home late. Every flaw she thought I had. It didn't matter if it was real. If she believed it, she documented it." Lila whispered. "She's still doing that." He sighed. "Of course she is." I took a breath. "Do you know what's inside that second cabinet?" Mark stared at the wall for a moment before answering. "Yes. Can you tell me?" He shook his head. "No. But I can tell you how it works." My pulse quickened. "The lock on that cabinet isn't normal," he explained. "It's not just a key. It's a two-step system. A key and a code." "Do you know the code?" "No," he said. "But I know the pattern she uses for her codes. Birthdays, dates, HOA events. She rotates them every few months." I felt a spark of hope. "And the key?" He hesitated. "That," he said slowly, "is harder." "Why?" "Because she doesn't keep it in the house." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" Mark leaned back in his chair, eyes distant. "Karen is a control freak, but she's also paranoid. She believes people will try to break into her house to access the files." "Has anyone tried?" I asked. He nodded once. "Board members. Angry homeowners. A lawyer. Someone even tried calling the county oversight committee. She shut them all down." "How?" Mark looked directly at me. "With those files." A long silence filled the room. Then he continued, "She hides the key somewhere she thinks no one would look. Somewhere personal. Somewhere symbolic." "Symbolic." "Yes," he said. "She hides it in the one place she feels the most powerful." Lila's eyes widened. "Oh no," I frowned. "Where?" Mark looked at me seriously. "In her garden." "In her garden?" He nodded. "She has a little metal lockbox buried under the pavers behind her rose bushes. She keeps the key there. She always believed the garden represented her authority over the neighborhood. Her kingdom, she used to call it." I blinked. "Her kingdom." He sighed. "You see why I left." Piece by piece, everything was falling into place. Her fear of losing control. Her obsession with files. Her desperation to keep everyone compliant. And now, the location of the key. "But listen carefully," he said, voice suddenly firm. "You cannot go into her yard. Not even an inch. She has cameras. She has sensors. She will use trespassing laws against you." "I wasn't planning to break in," I said. "I just need her to hand over the files." "And she won't," he replied. Not willingly. So how do I get them legally? I asked. He leaned forward. There's only one way. What? You make the board demand it. I frowned. But she controls the board. Not all of them, he said. There are 3 members she bullies. 2 who owe her favors. And 1 who actually hates her but stays silent to avoid trouble. I felt a new sense of possibility rising. If you can convince that 1 member to support you, you might get a vote. A vote for what? An emergency audit. I sat up straighter. An audit. Mark nodded. HOAs are required to allow audits when a homeowner reports suspicion of financial misconduct. If the board approves it, Karen must turn over all documents for review. And if she refuses? He smiled slightly. Then she loses her presidency. My heartbeat picked up hot and fast. This was it. This was the weak spot in her armor. But you need evidence to request an audit, he warned. Enough to make the board nervous. Lila squeezed her hands together. We can help, she said. There are people on the street who've been hurt by her. People who will speak, if they see someone strong enough to lead. For the first time since this all began, I felt hope. Real hope. I stood up slowly. Okay, I said. Tell me exactly who to talk to. Mark looked at me long and steady. You're walking into a storm, he said quietly. She won't go down without a fight. I'm not afraid, I replied. He nodded. Good. Because when this is over, she won't have any power left to hurt anyone. I wish I could tell you that after the meeting, everything finally calmed down. That Karen realized she was wrong. That she apologized. That the HOA finally backed off. But that wasn't the world I lived in. And Karen wasn't the type to accept defeat quietly. If anything, exposing her at the meeting made her more dangerous. More unpredictable. More desperate. The next few days felt like I was living in a pressure cooker. People whispered when Karen walked by. Neighbors avoided her. Cars slowed down in front of her house. Everyone was watching her, waiting to see what she'd do next. Because for the first time, the neighborhood queen wasn't in control. She was cornered. And cornered people lash out. And I was the person she blamed. The morning everything shifted 3 days after the HOA meeting, I woke up to tapping on my door. Not knocking. Tapping. Fast, shaky, nervous tapping. It was my neighbor, Mrs. Rivera, the sweetest old woman on the block. Her hands were trembling. She's getting worse, she whispered. Karen's telling people you hacked her computer. She's telling people you planted those files. I took a deep breath. Of course she was doing that. Of course she couldn't accept responsibility. Guilt wasn't a language she understood. What else is she saying? I asked. That you're dangerous. That you're unstable. Mrs. Rivera looked down at her feet. She even told the lawn crew not to work near your house. Great. Now I was the neighborhood threat. But, honestly, I didn't even feel angry. Not anymore. What I felt was tired. Tired of the games. Tired of the looks. Tired of the constant fear that any small thing I did could be twisted into something wrong. But I also knew something Karen didn't. I wasn't done. She had only seen the first half of my revenge. There was more coming, and this time, she couldn't escape it. The file that broke everything. Remember how Karen said the documents about misusing HOA funds were misfiled? Yeah. No. She had been funneling HOA money into a personal account disguised as a maintenance emergency fund. And I had the proof. Not hacked. Not accessed illegally. Just handed to me by someone she underestimated. Because Karen's biggest weakness? She treated everyone around her like they were dumb. And when you treat people like they're irrelevant, they stop being loyal. One of the board members, Daniel, slipped the documents under my door the night before the meeting. He didn't want to speak up publicly. He didn't want to be dragged into the drama. But he wanted the truth out. The meeting only exposed the harassment, not the money trail. The real evidence, the one that would destroy Karen's position completely, was still in my hands. And I knew exactly what to do with it. The final blow, I printed everything. Every transaction. Every maintenance fee. Every dollar she took. Then I prepared a neat little anonymous packet. No dramatic confrontation. No yelling. No threats. Just facts. Cold, clean, undeniable facts. I mailed the packet to the HOA Board, the County Housing Authority, the State HOA Regulatory Office, and for good measure, I emailed a scanned copy to every homeowner in the community. No commentary. No explanation. Just the files. Simple. Direct. Unstoppable. I didn't sign my name. I didn't have to. The truth didn't need my signature. The explosion, the reaction was immediate. By noon, the neighborhood WhatsApp group was exploding with messages. By evening, cars kept pulling up in front of Karen's house. Board members. Neighbors. People she had bullied for years. Everyone suddenly had something to say. For the first time since she'd taken power, Karen wasn't the one calling the shots. She stayed inside. Curtains closed. Lights off. If someone walked by her house, she peeked through the blinds like a paranoid raccoon. The next morning, an emergency HOA meeting notice went out. Not from Karen. From the board. You know what the subject line said? Immediate vote, removal of HOA president. I wasn't even planning to attend. I figured it would be handled without me. But when I stepped outside to get my mail, neighbors literally waved me over. Come. You should be there. This is happening because of you. So I went. The room was packed. Karen wasn't sitting at the front like she usually did. Instead, she was off to the side, hunched, arms crossed so tightly it looked like she was holding herself together. Her face was pale, eyes red, hands shaking. She looked small. The board displayed the evidence on the projector. Every dollar. Every lie. Karen didn't deny it. She didn't defend herself. She just stared at the table, like if she didn't make eye contact, the world would stop happening. When the vote came, it was unanimous. She was removed. Not suspended. Not warned. Removed. The same neighbors she used to boss around raised their hands without hesitation. People she fined without reason. People she embarrassed. People she controlled. They all voted her out. And then, surprisingly, Karen stood up. Her voice broke. I was trying to hold everything together. I didn't want the neighborhood to fall apart. But no one believed her. Not anymore. Her last line before she walked out was quiet, almost too quiet to hear. This neighborhood was supposed to be mine. Aftermath. In the weeks that followed, everything changed. The HOA stopped harassing people. Rules became reasonable. The board became actually responsive. Neighbors who barely spoke to me before suddenly waved when I passed. Some even thanked me. And Karen. She sold her house. Packed up. Left without saying goodbye to anyone. One morning, I watched her drive away, car loaded with boxes. She didn't look angry. She looked defeated. And for a second, just a second, I felt a little sorry for her. Because all she had to do was leave me alone. The final line of my story: people always ask me if I feel guilty. If exposing her was too much. If I should have let things go. If revenge was worth it. Here's the truth: I didn't want revenge. I wanted peace. But when someone tries to destroy your peace, you don't stay silent. You defend yourself. You protect your home. You stand up for what's right. And sometimes, the only way to stop a bully is to show everyone who they really are. And that's exactly what I did.